Yes, I'm recording. Hello. Good evening. So I'm trying a different lighting setup. I don't really like... It's winter, so the days are shorter. I get to work at a certain time. It's dark outside. Normally I would let the sun light me through the window. I like the idea of a minimal setup. But for the past few weeks, I've just settled on using the lights from my laptop. And I don't like the way it looks. Right? It's a horror movie type of lighting. I suppose if you look at the thumbnail, it looks like I'm about to tell horror stories, right? Which is not the point. So I'm using my punching bag as a tripod, put a light on it. It's a strange way to position the light where I've put it, but I'm just curious to see how it's going to look. And we shall see. So I'm going to start with, yes, it is winter and it's pretty cold. So I was planning on doing the podcast with clothes on for once, because I got home and it was really cold. And then I decided not to be lazy. For the past few days I've been sticking to my routine of hitting the bag when I get home, hitting the bag. And so I did, and naturally warmed my body up. And so I'm able, for consistency, to show up in my boxers once again. And it's crazy how, it's another thing that I know, that most people know. It's just a known fact that if you're feeling lazy and you just decide to do something, to force yourself to do something, no matter how small, if you have to do something, for example, just starting, tell yourself you're going to do it for a minute, for 50 seconds, and naturally it's going to, fuel you, right? And that energy you didn't have, you will have. So I think we all know this idea that motivation shouldn't be the motivator. If you need to do something, do it, and then the motivation will arrive. I think the equation is something like action leads to motivation and not the opposite. You'll be motivated from time to time, but if that's your main source of fuel, then you won't get anywhere. And so I didn't think, I was going to do the podcast anyways, but I wasn't very energetic when I got home. And I'm not very energetic, but I'm more energetic now that I've done, a few minutes of exercise, I guess you could call. So for the sake of even more consistency, we're going to start by talking about what I'm grateful for. And this year has been exceptional. In comparison to the previous years, I've been very active. No, not really. But I've had jobs all year. I've had projects that were paid. Not much money for the most part, but still projects that were paid, which is a huge improvement from the past. So I suppose it's that time of the year when you start reflecting. And I'm very grateful that I've had paid projects throughout the year. So that's pretty cool. Bum, bum, bum. The next note says, let go. I remember when I did this exercise, probably found it on a YouTube, no, an Instagram video of what are you supposed to do to get to where you want to be. And I'm not going to detail the whole exercise, but they ask you to make a list. I think they ask you to go to 20. And the first few things are going to be obvious, but the more you push, the harder it is to come up with, suggestions, with ideas. And the idea is that if you keep pushing, then you will eventually find the one. And the last thing I wrote down was let go. And so the note says, let go, embrace the grind. My happiest day is Sunday climbing. And it's true. If I had to pick a specific day in the week that is always my favorite day, it's Sunday. Because Sunday, I wake up, and the first thing I do as soon as I wake up is I go with my brother to the climbing gym, bouldering. And we stay there for 4 or 5 hours. And it's great. There's no phones, it's just climbing. It's exclusively climbing and some socializing, you could say. And the same as with the 7 days I did earlier in the year, a few months ago, during the summer break, of no technology, no people, nothing, which was an extreme version. But in that week, I felt the best I've ever felt for a week. And just brings me back to this idea that when you let go, when you strip things down to the minimum, to the basics, that's when you feel the best. And nowadays we've been misled to believe that more is better, right? You're going to watch your movie on the TV, then you're going to have your laptop on the left where you're browsing the internet. Yo! Yes? I forgot to put the thing on the...
Wat is de scotch erbij?
Yeah, it's in here. Oh, it's here. Get it? No, I can't move. I can't move from here. I'm in focus right now. Well, tough luck. Don't knock anything down, please. Don't move the camera. So as I was saying, what was I saying? No, it's on the tabletop. It's on the tabletop. There. Yeah, further. Yeah, you got it. What was I saying? Yeah, less is more. Now, I'm not going to keep talking as you're crawling around. I'm going to wait for you to leave. Well, you really don't want to be seen. Fuck off. Mind your business. Mind your business. As you're crawling outside of my room. As I was saying, what was I saying? Less is more. So yes, nowadays people will watch a movie on TV and then they'll have their laptop where they are conversing with someone, and then their phone where they're browsing through TikTok, and maybe their iPad even. And I think it's statistically true that people are more unhappy nowadays than they've ever been in the West. And the rate of suicide is up, all these things. And I do believe a lot of that can be attributed to people seeking more always. I guess it's similar to addiction, right? When you're addicted to anything, you want to push it further. It doesn't satisfy you as much as it did once when you started. So you keep pushing and pushing, and you're more and more dissatisfied, and it's hurting you more and more. So I suppose it's the same with humanity in general. We're becoming more powerful, we're having more access to more things, we want more and more and more. And in return, it's more and more dissatisfying. Life itself, as we are able to get more, becomes more dissatisfying. So I suppose the conclusion to this segment is that I need to strip things away more and more. And I look around my room and I'm not good at this. I am with some things, but not with enough things. So let go. Ooh, the next note is... I don't know if the word is controversial, it's just a hot topic. Well, the first two words of the sentence are, the first three words are room temperature IQ, which I heard in a podcast recently. I remember the first time I heard the word room temperature used in a sentence. And I think it's such a funny expression. I got hooked on these videos of a person analyzing people defending themselves with firearms, people in shops getting attacked. You know, the owner of the shop pulls out a gun to protect himself. And the guy commenting kept talking about this idea of winning the room temperature challenge. I remember I put that in the script once. And this time someone said room temperature IQ, which I suppose means dead IQ, no IQ. And this note is about October 7th. Should I be talking about this? So in a similar fashion to 9/11 and just the news, I don't follow it too closely. And I thought about it recently on why, for example, I didn't do much research on October 7th and the Palestine-Israel conflict. And I think back to my 16-year-old self, who used to just consume information like an addict because I wanted to know more and more, and, you know, going into controversies and just history and becoming addicted to that. And so I think a part of myself is a bit apprehensive that I might do that again and just spend too much time on it because it's a form of escapism, I suppose. Now, I know you might say, no, it's an important topic. I'm an adult. I'm just a person alive today. I should know more about it. And to that I reply, but I am an extremist. It's either all or nothing. So if I do start searching on it, I'm gonna start buying books and start reading so much information. and not be productive. Now, I remember this topic being talked about, Israel-Palestine, my whole life at dinner tables, and I never knew what was happening or what to say. And I know my mother, for example, has been paying attention to it and just researching her whole life. It's been happening since she was born and before she was born. So all her life it's been happening. So she knows a lot on the topic. And since the events of October 7th, she's told me, she shared some information with me. Once again, I don't know, I'm not a scholar on the topic. I don't know that much. But what seems to be happening is that, very much on the surface, what seems to be happening is that some people started learning about the topic, about the conflict, on October the 7th. And what they're doing is that my mother sent me a comedian making a joke on it, saying, "Oh, you started watching, from the 7th season, the story. You just arrived in the 7th season, and you're commenting on it as if you know what you're talking about." So what seems to be happening is that people are reacting to what happened on the 7th of October, which was horrific. And it's so horrific, and it's been put on, we've been bombarded with images and information on the topic, that people are acting like the past close to 100 years haven't been happening. I think it's in the 40s that the problem started. And so coming from a person who doesn't know that much about it, I think that it's pretty clear, if you do any amount of research, that a great injustice has been taking place in that region for decades, with the Palestinians being just slaughtered and held in captivity in horrible conditions. And so when my mother talked to me about the subject, she told me a lot of information in terms of how it's connected to Russia and Ukraine and just world politics and all that stuff, which I won't get into because that's just too complex. But it's very clear that they are using October the 7th to say, hey, look what happened. It was horrible. And it justifies everything. And let's not talk about the past. And I might be coming off ignorant because I am to a degree. But from what I've read, from the information that's out there, it's pretty clear that what happened on October the 7th, which was horrible, was a reaction of sorts to what has been happening for the past decades. And that acting as if what happened on the 7th justifies anything, really, anything, is ridiculous. And yeah, I mean, what does it justify anyways? We're in the 21st century. Is that how it works? An eye for an eye, someone, a part of a group of people, an extremist group, can I say it? An extremist group that decides to, appoint themselves as the representatives of another group, does something horrible. Therefore, this enormous, extremely powerful, wealthy military organization with all these resources just is allowed to destroy civilians and to just do these horrible things. I think it's ridiculous. And I've also watched interviews on the subject, and there's many metaphors and comparisons being made. But yeah, I mean, it's an extremely complex topic. But the people who seem to just latch on to October the 7th, I don't get it. I mean, I guess I do. Some people are very stupid. Some people, there is something to be gained from it. But I don't even know if I want to look more into the subject, because then what will happen is that next podcast will be exclusively me talking about the subject. And there's a reason why no one in the public eye is talking about it from a new and nuanced perspective. It's because it's very much discouraged. So I think I'll stick to that. But the next note is on, how would I say? The next note is on why I love Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones is not perfect, of course, especially the last seasons. But what I liked about it was not the dragons and the sex, even though I was, 12 or 13 when I started watching, and the sex was definitely a driving force behind me being so engrossed in the series. But what I like the most about it is the fact that we are able to see all these different aspects of war, essentially. The politics, the fact that the public doesn't know anything that's happening behind closed doors, that people are breaking rules, people are betraying each other, they're doing these horrible things for the sake of power. And it made me think about the Israel-Palestine, for example, situation, and how throughout history things happen and 99% of people don't really know how or why it happens or what really happens. In the case of controversies of John F. Kennedy, of 9/11, we all feel like we know. Some of them are very fishy. It's hard to disagree that most likely something happened behind. There's more to it than what we're being told. But the fact is, we'll never know truly what happened, how it happened. We'll never know the ins and outs. But with fiction, and with something like Game of Thrones, for example, you're able to give people a sense of what happens in those situations, of the ins and outs. And I think that's fascinating. And Game of Thrones is really good. It's not perfect, but I'm realizing as I'm seeing the intersection between my fascination with conspiracies, and with this desire to know what is actually happening, and this knowledge that I will never truly know. The intersection between that and my desire to create stories, and how I can kind of indulge in this obsession and create, take inspiration from history, but also explore this side of reality that will never be accessible to me. So I remember almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, talking to a guest at work about this idea I have for a series that I've had since I was probably 16. And there's multiple layers to it, but the main thing that I want to, just like Game of Thrones, I want the most attractive thing about it to be that. The intrigue, the political intrigue. I think that's the word, the term, is it? Something like that. That thing I just mentioned. It's going to be a sci-fi, it's going to be all sorts of things, aliens, etc. But I want the heart of it to be the complexity of the intrigue. And me being a paranoid artist, I won't mention the ideas of the story. But one day I'll make it. It's going to be great. It's going to be Game of Thrones, sci-fi version, and actually very different. But it's going to be similar in that aspect. The best thing about Game of Thrones is the people in it, right? They explore, the human condition in depth, and the gears of war. I suppose that's how fiction works and fantasy, is that people can't find answers to some things, and so they just make things up to satisfy that need. I suppose religion and the idea of a god is like that. And it's the same with popular fiction. My next note is on the word opinionated, which people use wrong all the time. I just realized the light is pointing at me from the left, but there's a mirror here. Am I getting... No, I'm not really getting reflection. That would have been pretty smart, doing the side light and the front light with one light. But it's not powerful enough. Plus with the mirror it would look weird, I think. Opinionated, which I looked the definition of, and the definition of opinionated is negative, as in it means you are too stubborn to change your opinion. You're not someone who will allow differing opinions, to sway you. It means you're obstinate in your reasoning. Dogmatic, I think, is one of the words used in the definition. And people use that word all the time. One of my guilty pleasures, I'll admit, is watching, standout TV grilling. Now, the first time I watched it was because Andrew Tate was on it, and he was, coming to prominence, so I was intrigued. But I watched a few persons that I know, as in creators online that I know of, go on it, and I am intrigued by it because a lot of it is about male-female dynamics in relationships, which I find intriguing, and the viewpoint on the subject, from modern celebrities, I guess. And I read the comments as well, and I'm intrigued to see how people view the subject. And people on that thing use the term opinionated all the time. And what people say when they say they are opinionated is that they have strong opinions. And I don't like the idea of saying I have strong opinions. I think that's a weak statement. I think that's weird. I prefer the idea of saying I like questioning myself. I like questioning well, it's not that I prefer saying it, it's that that's what I believe. I wouldn't say I have strong opinions. I would say I like questioning myself, therefore I do research on my opinions, which in a roundabout way means I have strong opinions. But people who say I have strong opinions, I'm opinionated, usually they're full of shit. And usually they don't know what they're talking about. And this idea but the thing is, people who say they are opinionated, who are trying to say that they have strong opinions, are opinionated. They are saying the truth. They just don't know it. And I think that's a huge problem. People being unwilling to change their opinions. And it seems to be a mechanism that people kind of build that they can't let go of. This idea of being unwilling to change your opinion. And recently at work, I've been eating meat from time to time. Beef, I've eaten rabbit, and I'm not religious. The reason I don't eat meat is not from religion. It's because my parents didn't. And so they instilled in me this idea that I shouldn't. There are reasons for it. Many of those reasons can be debunked. The idea, for example, that it's bad for the planet, which is true, but I'm pretty sure tofu is one of the worst things to mass produce in terms of damaging the planet. I think it's the amount of water it uses. And then you have these fake meat. What the fuck? I don't know if you heard this, but my brother, I don't know, he's making a lot of noise. These fake meats, these meat-free meat, sausages, bacon and all sorts of things, which I've eaten my whole life, which it turns out, I'm realizing now, tastes a lot like the real deal. Some of them. And these are also made in ways, they're just weird things that are made in labs. I don't know if they're healthier than the real deal. And also at work, it's a 2 Michelin star restaurant, so I'm pretty confident that the meat is of a good quality. I know that's one big thing about meat, is that usually, if you buy it cheap, it's bad quality. People eat too much meat, which can have adverse effects on the body. But going back to the point, it's been only I did it for the first time 2 weeks ago. And a part of me, or 3 weeks ago, something like that, a part of me almost thought that eating this meat, I would feel an effect immediately. Like, I've eaten meat. My body's gonna do something. It's gonna say, what the fuck? We haven't eaten meat for 24 years. We can't process that, or this feels strange. And obviously that didn't happen. But having been so consistent over 24 years in not eating meat besides eggs and fish, it's like I don't even know why. Since working at the restaurant where I work, I've been asked a lot, why don't you eat meat? Why not? I've been made to question myself a lot by guests and by colleagues. And my answer is always, my parents never ate meat, therefore it's just not something I do. As a result of not eating meat for 2 decades, when I smell it, smells off to me. I don't like the smell. It smells disgusting, to be honest, for the most part. And they'll say, I remember at school they'll say, yeah, but you're not going to grow strong. You're going to be weak physically. And I would always reply, well, I'm not. I'm tall. I'm in good shape. I remember at school I was, one of the people who exercised the most, and I would be on the basketball court during the whole break. And so when people would say that, I would say, well, didn't you see me? I'm in better shape than everyone. And it was just kind of excuses, really. Because at the end of the day, is meat good for me is the question, right? Only way to find out is to try. And I'm willing to try. I've held off for a long time, but I'm realizing the reasons I have for not trying are not good enough. They are not valid. And so I pride myself on being someone who is not opinionated and is not dogmatic in their beliefs. I'm willing to change at any time if I feel like it's reasonable or justified. And eating meat was something that I've never felt like I needed to change. I've never had health problems. I'm never sick. I'm in good health. So there was never a reason to put that into question. And yet I decided to do so because I'm curious. And so I'm quite, I'm happy because it might sound like nothing, but it's a big thing. For example, I can't cook meat here, for example. They want, the smell and everything, using the same pans. I can't do it. I'll be able to kind of delve into that more when I move out. But the idea of it, for example, for my parents, my dad specifically, and for my brother, it makes no sense to them. They're very against the idea. Why are you doing that now? You're in good health. Why would you change? And I hope this never goes away from me. This desire to question things and to put myself into question. And so I think I had someone told me about this recently, this idea that Masha at work, a chef, this idea that, how do I explain this? People operate in tribes. It goes back to the caveman days, I guess. People always mention that. This idea that we go into tribes. We form tribes. And he was talking to me about this in terms of ideas and how, this guy might have this idea and this guy might have that idea. And then people will flock around these two persons because they agree. And then it evolves into a tribe. And then it's hard to then go against the idea because your identity, in a way, is shaped around that idea. Right? We all know this. If, for example, you have a group of friends and you like to get drunk on the weekends, and then one day you start to question it, you start to think, it's not so good for me. I have, it's detrimental to my life. I don't want to do it anymore. It's hard to say to your friends, I want to stop now, because in a way it's something that links you together. Might not be the only thing, but it's important. And so people in that situation, people who might be weak, your friends will say, instead of saying, oh, you want to become better, they'll say, oh, you're betraying us in a way. So it's very difficult to change, especially when the change you're trying to bring about is something that links you to other people. And so it's the same with ideas. People will pick a side, and nuance is not embraced, or is not what's the word? Nuance is not encouraged. It's either this or that. For example, me with not eating meat. The way my parents always, explained it to me is that meat is bad for the planet. It's bad for your health. It's bad to kill animals, which this one, makes no sense because a fish is an animal, isn't it? And eggs. And I remember my grandpa once when I was a kid, not a kid, maybe 16, said, "Oh, what about the tomatoes? They suffer as well." And it annoyed me. I said, "No, but they're fruits. Tomatoes are fruits, right? I think they're fruits." Or is it avocados? Fruits are avocados. Avocados are fruits. I think tomatoes are fruits as well. I'm not sure. Who cares? And yes, it angered me. I thought, I'm trying to have a serious conversation about food and you're making a joke, but it's true, right? Vegetables do suffer when they are, being killed. It's just, you can't really tell the same way you would with an animal. But the idea that it's bad to kill an animal, makes no sense. Just doesn't. If you're pescatarian especially, which is the weirdest kind of idea for diets, right? You eat fish, but you don't eat cows. And so they had this list, of reasons why. And so, once again, I'm in good health. I have no complaints, so why would I change? And it's difficult to say to my father, especially, who's very, I would say, opinionated. It's difficult to tell him, "Oh, I want to do this." I'm changing my diet, not because I think it's cool or for a dumb idea. I want to see how I will feel and see if I can improve. So the motivation behind the diet is the same as it's always been. I'm just removing things that don't make sense. For example, the ethical aspect of it. But the fact that it's good for your health. If eating meat has positive effects, why not? Right? So people will just stick to an idea and then they build their identity around it and they refuse to change. Forever. Alright. Now recently I haven't had a lot of notes. I got nothing to talk about. So let's talk about the projects I've got going on. I still have to finish the video for the choir. I was pretty happy with the first draft I sent. She wanted something different. I have the music video for Adam that I'm going to be editing tonight and for the next few days. And it's inspired by... Together we watched Snakes on a Plane by Joel Haver. I'm going to try to make it as different as possible. I don't want it to look like a copy. Then there's a video that I'm going to shoot soon for Alan. Then there's the animated video I'm still working on. So I'm very lucky. I got projects to work on. Pain addiction. My glasses are very thin. And so this part here used to dig into my head literally. I don't know exactly how they designed these, why, but it would just dig right into my head and it used to hurt. There's still a dent in the skin here. And I don't know why it took me so long to fix it. But for a while I put pansement, how do you say this? When you injure yourself, you put something on your wound and it's called bandage of sorts. What is it called? Who cares? I started this podcast thing, and my main inspiration, as I mentioned many times in the past, was Chris D'Elia. I used to watch his podcast all the time, and he's a comedian, and his podcasts can be funny. And right now, I just thought to myself, I could make this entertaining if it was funny, for example. Right? How can this be entertaining? The way it's currently structured. It can't really. It's quite boring. So I could try to make it funny. Recently, I've been listening more to Shane Gillis' podcast with a guy named Matt something, I think. And it's funny as well. And there's two people going back and forth. So I feel like it's easier for it to be funny. But that's not the case here. So I look to, there's Theo Von and Chris D'Elia who have these solo podcasts which are funny. And I wonder, how could I make this funny? I guess I'm not funny. That's a sad realization. Here I am, in my underwear on my bed, wondering, how could I make this funny? And I don't know. Oh man, this thing is shaped like those bottles that people drink out of, where they keep their secret juice. I guess we need to delve deeper in the idea of funny. How can I be funny? How can someone be funny in this format here? I guess Chris D'Elia looks at videos and analyzes them. He talks about his life. I think he finds himself funny, which helps. I find myself funny. Why can't I be funny? Here. I find myself super funny. I mean, what's funnier than a guy in his underwear on the mattress in his mother's apartment with a makeshift microphone holder? This thing, I don't know what it's called, but it's not necessary indoors. And a portable LED light taped to a punching bag, staring at himself in the mirror and talking for 50 minutes, being clueless throughout. What's funnier? Maybe I should try to make a joke. I heard a joke recently. Thought it was funny. Maybe what's funny is the idea of someone who's not funny trying to be funny. I'm gonna watch this back and cringe. Cringe is such a disgusting word, I don't like it. What do you call an alligator with a suit? Was that the joke? I guess that was a joke. What do you call an alligator in a suit? I guess that was a joke. What do you call an alligator in a suit? An investigator. That's not the joke. That's kind of funny, the idea that I can't remember the joke. Is that investigator? No, it's what do you call what do you call an alligator in a vest? Is that the joke? I'm too ashamed to look it up now. What do you call an alligator in a vest? An investigator. Yeah, I guess it's not funny. Wow, that's sad. I was gonna make a point about pain addiction. These glasses used to be very painful, and it took me a long time to fix it. And now it's fixed. And every time I put them on, it doesn't hurt. And a part of me misses the fact that it used to hurt. I know that sounds very weird. I suppose the term is masochistic. I'm not masochistic, but I have multiple habits like that actually. My nails are, I guess I'm trying to tone down the swearing, but my nails are fucked up. My thumbs are fucked up. And I used to bite my nails till they bled. And they used to be all fucked up, but now these ones are normal. But the thumbs are still fucked up. And it's a form of an addiction, I guess. It's an impulsive reaction to stress, I think. That's the way it's explained. And I guess I'm stressed all the time. But I've been doing that my whole life. Is that I used to bite my lips. I used to bite the inside of my lips. And all these things hurt. Especially when you go too far and it bleeds and they get damaged the way my thumbs are damaged. Like my thumbs hurt all the time. I go bouldering, and when I put pressure on my thumbs, which I have to, it's painful. So my thumbs have always hurt. My lips, I've stopped biting for the most part. But I'm curious, what the hell is it with these things that are painful, that are hard to let go of? And so I think I'm going to title this episode Death Drive. I'm pretty sure that's a term with a definition. The idea of doing things that lead to self-destruction. Which sounds highly dramatic, but what I just did is one of those things. Things that we know to be unhealthy and damaging that we keep doing. I think I like how I haven't read comments or heard people talking about this, but in the interview with Piers Morgan and Andrew Tate, Piers said at least 3 times, at least twice, he said, in my estimates. And I couldn't help but laughing. What the hell do you mean in your estimates? You're here trying to look serious and professional, and you're trying to make the other guy look bad in many instances. And you keep saying in your estimates. What the hell does that mean? Who cares about your estimates? Why? What the hell? What does that mean? That's ridiculous. He forfeited any credibility the first time he used that sentence. In my estimates. I don't get it. I don't know where to go from there. Just the idea that he kept saying, in my estimates. Who are you? You're some British bloke who talks shit online. And who's been discredited countless times. I just thought that was pretty funny that he kept saying, in my estimates. And, his interlocutor should have said, in your estimates, you're here criticizing me for my beliefs, my ideas, because you feel like they're unfounded, based on facts and truth, and you're here talking about in your estimates. Ridiculous. I have my Christmas cards, got them printed, wrong paper, and the print looks off. But I'm that much closer to having physical prints of my Christmas cards, and I'm going to sell them. And I'm going to become extremely rich. I remember at school, I used to go to Bishopsford Art College. And it changed to Harris Academy. Lord Harris took over the school, I guess. His academy thing, whatever. And people used to always say, Lord Harris got rich selling carpets. And I thought, that's pretty funny. The idea that perhaps that's how he got started. And now he's very wealthy and powerful. And I'm sure with that money he was able, he's got a whole school thing going on. What if I'm Abraham, who got rich selling Christmas cards? Okay. Oh my god, 2 more minutes. Come on, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I'm all talked out. I am all talked out. I'm out. Deflated, empty. Just a balloon making that noise as it glides around the empty room. Let me try to be funny again. Let me try to be funny. I think, I've been quite somewhat consistent starting the podcast on gratefulness. I did hit a controversial topic. Was it controversial topic or was it a conspiracy that I wanted to talk about? I think it was controversial, right? Because that gets clicks. I did the controversial topic, the gratefulness to open. I'm going to add trying to be funny. The idea of doing this podcast was so scary at first. And now it's not. So I suppose the idea of trying to be funny is frightening beyond belief. But if I keep doing it, it will stop being scary. But where do I start? Where does one start? Where does one start trying to be funny? Should I start trying to write jokes? Make jokes? I guess that's the only way. How do you construct a joke? There's this video of Lionel Richie, I think, in an interview saying he starts tapping. You know, and then he says, if you heard a song while I was doing this, then you are a songwriter, you know, a musician. It's your nature. It's who you really are. If you didn't, then you're not. And I remember, you know, I didn't hear anything because obviously I'm not a songwriter. And then there's the video, the masterclass by David Mamet. David Mamet. I still don't know how to pronounce his name. David Mamet will say. No, David Mamet. And he makes a similar statement at the end. In terms of, are you a screenwriter or a storyteller? Which I am. But am I a comedian? I don't know. Okay, I shouldn't just start listening to the music next door. I guess I'm done. I would love to be able to be funny. That's so cool. That was funny. I think a lot of it comes down to, does it? Being likable? I don't know. I don't think there's one thing. Comedians come in all shapes and sizes. All kinds of flavors. Do I have a flavor? A comedic flavor? I think I don't. I think that's the conclusion to this whole episode here. I do not. There's no natural way I can enter this. Which is fine. Yeah, I guess the funny experiment is over. This episode will be titled Death Drive, which I haven't really talked about much. Thank you for listening, and see you next week.